is the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, brought to you by Cisco. Cisco is here to help set you up for success by delivering high-quality foods, products, and services for your restaurant. Recording live to digital from the NCF&B studios in downtown Raleigh. Join us as we lead you into the kitchen, inside the bottle, and into the minds of the food and beverage industry. And now, complaining that their ceviche was too cold, it's Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And this woman in studio today could be said as the heartbeat of Raleigh. That's right. She is a 5-time nominee of the James Beard Award, and she just opened a new restaurant in the 5 Points District. I'm going to bury the lead. We'll talk about it in a second. But here in studio, Miss Cheetie Kumar.
Hi.
Hello.
Heartbeat. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Oh, shit. There it is. That's Anthony Guerra. Always, for his one time he was on the show, and now he gets that
a lot of royalties we're going to have to pay him.
I know, every time. As a reminder for everybody, we're not just an audio show. We are a podcast and a video show as well. So check us out on our YouTube page. All the links are in our social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that nonsense, and on our website, ncfbpodcast.com. But all right, now that we have taken care of house business, let's go in the Wayback Machine.
Ooh, that is way back you're about to go.
I'm going to go back to, I think we were just discussing, it was maybe 2017, is that right?
That sounds right.
When you and your partner, Paul Seiler, who I just saw over the weekend, looking as fit as ever, you all were on our podcast, but you were not in this studio. You were in the basement of my townhouse.
That's right, yeah.
In North Raleigh. But you just took the tour of the kitchen. We've grown up since last you've seen us.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've all changed places.
That's right.
That's right.
New venues.
Yeah, you used to be our neighbor. You were a block away. You definitely know this area, being at Garland for so many years. But now you have a new joint. So
yeah, new joint indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those of you that might have not listened, we'll do a quick reset. You know, Cheetie, you were not born in this country, right? You were born.
I was born in Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's right. You were born in Pittsburgh, but you're first generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
My family moved back when I was about 6 months old to India.
Okay.
And I was raised in Chandigarh until the age of 8.5. And then we moved back to America, to the Bronx, where I lived through high school. I barely lived through high school and went to UMass Amherst and then moved to Raleigh.
Yeah, the Bronx and Pittsburgh. That'll definitely color your character.
I think I'm American.
Well, whatever that means
yeah,
today, but
right?
yes.
Exactly.
But and the other huge part of that is not only are you a chef and a highly recognized chef, but a pretty damn good musician at the same time.
I used to be at one point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have the chops anymore because you got to practice.
Yeah.
There's no Billy Joel, Matt.
Oh God! Already we've been like
she's always
3
a woman
minutes
to
in.
me.
Oh my God! I gotta go, guys.
I wasn't gonna bring it up, Max.
I know, but I had to. I literally give Matt shit about this all the time. But for listeners that want to go way back to like episode whatever, we'll have to put it in. It's episode.
I'm no music critic.
Yeah, but when Cheetie and Paul were on our show, 6 years ago, Matt was like, "Your music's great. It really reminds me." And I can't remember the other band you said, but it was like
a hybrid of,
like let's say it was like, you remind me of like Led Zeppelin meets Billy Joel. And it was just,
I think my face fell.
yeah. It's a good thing that we weren't on camera at the time.
It would have been like less offensive if I slapped you, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like you did.
I mean, Billy Joel's fine. Billy, if you're listening, because he probably is.
Yeah, he's a big listener.
Yeah.
Long Island boy like myself.
Right.
So yeah.
We're not taking any, it's just, I don't see Birds of Avalon and Billy Joel being on the same bill at, a hopscotch coming up or whatever.
I don't see Billy Joel at hopscotch. But
Yeah. By the way, that's you guys, right? Hopscotch, didn't you have something to do with the creation
Paul and Greg Lowenhagen and Grayson Curran started it, and we met at the Rockford when I was still bartending there way back like in 2008. Greg had moved from Austin, Texas, and had this idea to do a festival in Raleigh, and here we go. Yeah,
That's so crazy, and
Yeah.
it's about
Paul-
to happen, right? Like it's in September.
September.
It's always the weekend after Labor Day, and Paul booked the first year.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was the same year the Kings opened. It was all this controversy about, being biased and
Oh yeah, they're like
conflict of interest.
conflict of interest. Yeah, well, that's fine.
Well, but back to your music career for a second. So, like, there was a time, and I guess you're saying you're not doing it anymore, but where you were.
We are. It's
You
just,
still are?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just a different, we're kind of on a glacial pace, whereas before it was very regimented. We kind of wrote a record every year. We toured all the time, and you come home, you make a record, you go tour and support the record, and you come home and you do it again. You bartend while you're home and make some
Right.
money.
Yeah.
But that kind of decade kind of takes its toll, and we all were broke, and opportunities came up for everybody in the band, and we had the opportunity to open Kings and Neptunes and then Garland, down the street.
Yeah.
And so it's just tough. I see articles sometimes and people are like, she's a musician and a performer, and in her free time she runs a restaurant. It's like, have you ever run a restaurant?
Yeah.
That's not a
Free
a
time.
free time job.
Yeah.
That's not even a part-time job. That's not even a full-time job. So, but we, the pandemic really put a big hurting on our ability to get together. I mean, for a year and a half, it was like, our bandmates have small children, so we couldn't practice. We couldn't be in the same room. We're sending each other parts, but the pandemic was crazy.
Yeah.
But since Garland closed, we really got together for quite a while. But now Paul and I are moving, so we always have practiced in our house. And so,
Are you still gigging regularly? Or?
we haven't. We played the cover up whenever that was in February, but we haven't really played since. We haven't played our own show since the pandemic.
I'm curious because, like, when you're a bartender, bartending's fun, but I think most people would say, "Oh, I'm bartending until I do my next gig or until I do my real job." I'm throwing up quote signs. But when you're a chef, owner of a restaurant, and still gigging, like, is there something that gives you more pleasure, or it's just like you're split down the middle, or more fulfillment?
I need both, and when I don't have one, I really miss it. I need to cook and I need to play.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I feel deprived. I feel like my life isn't quite complete. But I think chefs are used to living in deprivation. We don't eat, we don't drink water,
Right.
all of that thing. So, but really to have a balanced life when I feel the most sort of creative is when both things are active in my life.
Yeah.
By the way, I was actually going to perform at the cover up this year for the first
Oh.
time.
Yeah. What happened to that?
My pinky.
Oh, that's right. You sliced your pinky.
I chopped my pinky off on December 1st. I know Chris Coleman said to me, he's like, "You get injured all the time in the kitchen. Aren't you like kind of a professional in this industry?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I am no chef. But like I should know. I mean, I'm actually pretty damn good with a knife, except for when I'm trying to show Chef Kyle Tiers how to slice Gouda. And I said, "Hey, this is how I do it." And I'm like looking at him as I'm slicing, and just went.
So,
Yeah.
And he goes, "Did you?" And I go, "I did." He's like, "Oh no!" And then he picked up the knife, and the fingertip was on my finger, and it was It was
I think the
disgusting.
lesson learned is you don't need to show a chef how to slice Gouda.
Oh, definitely. I don't know why I was doing that. It was the first ticket of the day on his first day at Crafton, and yeah, it was like, what am I doing? Anyways, I had already, the aforementioned, this is off mic, I was telling you who Mike Rosato is, and Mike, people know on the show, like he also, I helped produce his Pencil Pushers podcast, which is a hand-drawn arts podcast. It's cool. If you guys like art, check it out. It's real fun. But Mike is the host of the show, but he also owns MRC, and he's a roommate here at the kitchen, and he's also a really, really good drummer. Like, he kicks ass. If you listen to the intro of our theme song, that's Mike Rosato on the drums, and me on guitar. And so,
Nice.
so I was all set to have Mike on drums, me on guitar. We had a full group.
Yeah.
And then somehow Mike kind of like kicked me out of the band without telling me. I kid around, but he's like, as you just said, Cheetie, like you have to devote time to rehearse and all
Yeah.
this. And I was running Crafton and like doing all these things, and they just never had time to do whatever. And then I chopped my finger, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to play guitar again because I'm lefty and that's the fretting hand.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. I was like, tears came out of my eyes on multiple days when I just didn't think I could play guitar again. It was like, can you imagine? Right. Like, and so, Mike, I think then they ended up playing. I had to bow out and I didn't get to do it, but they did, War on Drugs. That was the band.
Oh yeah.
So if you remember when when War on Drugs cover played, but for those who don't know, the cover up is, maybe you explain it because you know it better than I would.
Yeah, the cover up actually came from Champaign, Illinois. There was a guy in Raleigh named Jason, and Kings had opened in 1999, and always looking for like some weird thing to put together to get people in the door. And he was like, yeah, we used to do this thing. It's called The Great Cover Up, and nobody knows who the bands are, and money goes to charity. And I was like, cool. And yeah, so it's become this kind of institution, if I can use that word.
Totally.
It really kind of mobilizes the whole musical community, and people become a band, and you kind of get immersed in this thing, and you learn their songs, you watch their videos, and you become whoever you're supposed to be playing in that band. And it's really amazing. And the whole secret part is, I think, the best thing, because it's like it's anything goes, and there's some people are terrible, some people are exhilaratingly good, and it's just such a great time. And
a lot of times you don't even realize how many musicians, because it's like, I guess the way I perceive it is, it's not always about like gigging musicians that are going to do
That's
this
right.
now. It's a lot of kind of like, it's like the celebrity pro-am. No, it's amateur hour, but like in the best way possible.
People that can really play. I mean,
yeah.
I only went once, and it was exceptional. And
It's incredible. It's always incredible.
the most amazing thing that I saw was Shelley Godwin did and her band did. Sorry for those of you, I don't know who else was in the band. I know Shelley, but she did the Cranberries.
Yeah.
and crushed
I mean,
it.
she always crushes it. And,
She's a
usually
phenomenal
it's,
singer.
she really is. And she always puts together a great group
Yeah.
of people. It's usually Brian Shaw, who's one of the owners of Nice Price, is always in her band. So always Shelley and Brian put something together, and it's like,
Yeah.
in fact, I think they're playing, she's doing her greatest hits this weekend on Friday, I think, at King's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, okay. By the way, it was also ironic because I think the next day or that weekend, the lead singer of the Cranberries passed.
Oh, that's right.
And
I think
I was
it was
like,
right.
oh, that's
it was,
right.
I
That was
sent her
so
the
weird.
show, and I
Yeah.
was like, you
yeah,
should be,
I
you
know.
should take over.
It's crazy.
You should take
over.
Jeez,
I'm
Matt.
taking over the
Let
Cranberries.
the body rest.
Remember when? Remember In Excess had that comeback? I mean, AC/DC had all the a couple of different iterations of lead singer. So why couldn't Shelley be it?
Oh yeah, no. I liked the show, the In Excess show.
What was the name of that show?
Rockstar.
Rockstar, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was actually pretty legit. It
was a good show. I don't know. It was much better than American Idol.
I
Like,
thought so. It was like real musicians doing real songs and all that. Anyhow, all right. Let's move on. We are the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, so let's talk about sports right now.
Cool. I'm out.
I got
You're not
nothing.
a Steelers. Would you be a Steeler fan hailing from
I
Pittsburgh?
like those colors. Yeah, I don't
Right.
understand football.
Yeah. No, but let's talk about Ajja. No,
Ajja.
Ajja.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, I'm in my head now. Whatever.
Oh, because you had it so pronounced so well before.
I think I was saying Ajja, and then Matt said, "No, it's Aya," and I was like, "I don't know what it is."
It should have been spelled Aaja. That's the way you phonetically spell it in
Okay.
the Hindi Urdu word. It means come over, but visually Ajja looks better. And there's so many design opportunities. And I thought, well, 2 J's, nobody will say aha or Ajja or aya or whatever. But
hold
well.
my beer.
Alas.
Americans are like, oh, this is a foreign word. Got to be complicated.
Well,
used to-
so to be fair, when I saw it, I thought Ajja,
Mm-hmm.
and then I listened to the article in the NNO while I was writing when I was driving, and the AI or the bot pronounced it Aya.
See, bots. You cannot trust
Why are
them.
we trusting?
You would think that you could trust the bot, though, but like for
You
those
can't trust
those
the bot.
that.
those iterations of things, you can't.
Bots got too much information, thinking too much.
By the way, this is neither here nor there, but I don't know how much you've played with like the AI and ChatGPT and that
Little
stuff.
bit.
A little bit. I'm going to put this. I judged Drinking with Robots. Rob Nestor, who does Remedy Bitters.
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah.
It was fascinating.
Wait, what did you do?
I judged the so he has he pits
made the drinks.
a bartender.
By the way,
versus
give a shout out to the show because this is a really good
it's
show.
called Drinking with Robots. His 9th episode is coming out this week, which this episode will come out next week. But yeah.
Previous guests of the show and Remedy Cocktail Company, yes. Rob Nestor and his wife Ariana.
Yeah.
She usually is the judge, right?
She's typically the judge. She was out of town, so I was asked to be the judge. And so he pits a reputable, a very well-known bartender. And they have to come up. He comes up with a prompt, and I'm not going to give the prompt, but I'll give you an example. Like, make me a cocktail that reminds me of being in summer camp or something like that.
Yep.
I'm being very generic. And then he'll give the bartender the same thing, and he'll give ChatGPT the exact same directive. They come up with the specs. He makes the cocktail, and then he has a whole grading system on it. And it was wild.
It's scary, right?
It's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really creative. It's not just like, here's a Negroni. It's like, no, they're like, because they know that pawpaw fruit is in season right now, let's do a pawpaw reduction and add in some.
Well, he's not going to give you that, but he might say, wherever pawpaw, is local
No, but
to.
I'm saying
if you,
that,
you have a theme and we're in Raleigh, North Carolina, it's August, give me a cocktail.
There you go.
Yeah.
And-
but it's like, it's.
So
ChatGPT is not basic when it comes up to the flavors.
The
It's
nuances.
like really edgy and
So back to
But don't ask it to pronounce your
ask
restaurant.
it to pronounce things. Yeah. Yeah.
but so we let's talk about the space.
Ajja.
Ajja.
Ajja. It's a firm J sound.
Yes.
Ajja.
2 J's.
There you go. Yeah, there's so many J's.
Yeah, you got to say them. Yeah.
That's like,
Roll me 2 J's and it'll be cool like L.
but like my last name. There you go. Yeah, like I'm Trujillo. I don't want to give up on trying to educate the South on how to say my last name, but I'm getting close to it. It's like it's my name. Just learn it.
Yeah.
Like say it.
Just their sounds. Just
It's Spanish,
duplicate
guys.
them.
It's not that hard. As I was listening to an old Norm Macdonald podcast where he was being interviewed by
Suspended Larry King.
Larry King, and he's like, they say that English is the hardest language to learn. He's like, well, it's pretty easy for me. But so anyways,
We digress.
I went by on Friday, but you guys were fixing something. So
Well, yeah, we had already planned a little summer break.
Yeah.
I mean, opening a restaurant's hard, and our managers were working a lot. And August is a good time to take a beat, and it just lined up with our ability to do a renovation in the front space that we didn't anticipate having to do this early, but here we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were just closed 2 nights, but then we're adding Wednesdays starting next week. So
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, but the space is really cool. I did really see it only from the outside, but that's kind of really that's the cat's pajamas, right? It's like
The back outside.
The back outside. You've got a huge patio. I went there a long time ago, years ago, when Ancillary Fermentation did a pop-up there, and it was wild. And I've actually made note of it. I wrote about it in Raleigh Magazine where I said, Matt and I fancy ourselves as being like industry people and know a lot about the industry. And usually when you go to these pop-ups, you see all the same players and you see whatever. And I thought, this was really cool because I walked in and I didn't know anybody except for like the guys that like run, like Sean and all that. And I was like, wow, there is a huge culture of foodies that love things that are people I didn't know. And so it's even bigger than I thought. And then of course, the pandemic hit and everything shut down right after. And now we're back and we're good again. But your space oversees downtown Raleigh, which is really cool. And with it, that huge patio, kind of like sky's the limit as far as like the size and like the scope.
Like
of what
literally,
you can do.
yeah. I mean, we have, we went from a 10,800 square foot building with Kings, Neptunes, and Garland. And now this space inside is really under 2,000. But we have the ability to do kind of almost all the same things. And that's just really awesome. And it's so appropriate for, I know you just said the pandemic's over, and it is in a way, but like we're permanently affected by by that. So being able to have a small restaurant that has outdoor seating, that has, a little stage for sometimes and a bar, 2 bars, and, it's really manageable and expansive at the same time. It's kind of modular. I love it.
Yeah, what I really like is the new place, Ajja, really speaks to it really has an intention for
Ajja.
business. Ajja.
Yeah.
For intention and brand. And so I want to pause now for a quick word before we get back to the whole genesis of that from our title sponsor, Cisco.
Yeah. So while we can talk all day about cooking up the most delicious barbecue or an artisanal pizza or craft cocktails, it's the business and the branding side of things that often determines the success in this industry.
That's why Cisco, the global leader in food service, is the best resource to keep your brand strong. Cisco knows the great ingredients are only one part of your recipe for success. By understanding your unique needs, they can offer you powerful solutions to run every aspect of your business.
How? Well, Cisco has a team of experts that do in-depth consultations covering everything from profit and loss statements to keeping your menu on trend. Whether you're looking for training materials, food cost averages, or service ideas, Cisco has the expertise to fill your needs.
Visit Cisco.com, that's SYSCO.com, to learn more about all the great ways Cisco can boost your restaurant business.
Cisco, at the heart of food and service. All right, we're going to take a quick break to talk to our friend virtually, Lane Mitchell over there in Carborough, coming to us from Carborough Coffee Roasters. Hello, Lane. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing really well. How y'all doing today?
Excellent. Yeah,
Fantastic.
we're just taking a nice little break to chat with you, and we're drinking some coffee, but you know what we're drinking because you sent it over. What are we drinking?
Yeah, so I thought for today's episode, we would roll out one of my favorite producers. This is a women producer named Nancy Honduras, and she has a farm called Finca El Jasmine in Marcela, Honduras. She does, I think the name of her farm is just absolutely perfect because all of her coffee really has this beautiful jasmine floral overtones in the scent. This one particularly is a blend of Catuai and Bourbon beans. And you'll probably taste a lot of citrus in it, some green grapes, some kiwi. I like this one because it's very much tea-like. So it's really a lovely coffee for the morning and after dinner. Some honey sweetness, really lush acidity. So this is one of our, we have several generational relationships, and this is one of them. We've been working with the mother and the daughter's daughter for about 20 years now.
Yeah, as we talked about on the episode that we had with you guys with Scott, this is the mother-daughter team that came to work at the roastery, right?
Yes, absolutely. They came to work for about a month, learned everything about roasting coffee and operating coffee shops. And then they went back and opened several coffee shops in Honduras in their little city. And we've just had a really fantastic growth opportunity with them, not only here in North Carolina, but also in their hometown of Marcelo, Honduras.
Yeah. Max, I don't know if you're getting, but this coffee is just so well-rounded. Like it has bitter notes to start in a good way, like herbaceous and bitter. And then it's just, like you said, that honey round finish. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. It's got that, I love just the front palate of it. It's a little baker's chocolate, and then it just
Baker's chocolate, yeah. Good call.
Thank you, Lane. And just to refresh, how do we all get our hands on some Carborough Coffee Roasters?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, carboroughcoffee.com. We also have 3 cafes in Chapel Hill. We have Cafe Dryad, and then also Perennial. And those are both on Franklin Street. And then in Carborough, Open Eye Cafe, where we started.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lane. We will talk with you soon. We're back, and
so we were talking about the genesis of Ajja. I'm going to say it as many times as I can.
It's still wrong.
Ajja.
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 Yeah, Ajja.
It's not soft. It's hard.
Yeah, Ajja. Yeah. Where everyone else is going to know how to say it, at least at the very least, even if I don't.
Yeah.
But so maybe people that might not know about you yet. You had Garland for a very long time. That's where you gained a lot of accolades and became a household name as a chef. And I, say the heartbeat of Raleigh in a lot of ways. So let's just talk about what were the decisions behind closing that business?
Well, I mean, probably wouldn't have happened without the pandemic, for sure. And it wasn't planned for Ajja to be there without Garland. I mean, and I'll go into the backstory of that, but again, the building is 10,800 square feet. Garland is on the same lease. We operated King's, Garland, Neptune's as one thing. It was one lease. We were paying rent on that whole space the entire time.
Yeah.
And when we weren't, it was deferred and we had to pay it back. And even before the pandemic, it's really, the only thing tougher than a restaurant is a small music venue to like make money. It's a very tricky math. And it was just me and Paul, and we just never could. We were getting there for sure. Like we had a few really good years, but it was just exhausting. And I think that we just came to the conclusion into 21. Like, I think there was a time in 2020 before the vaccine, when the vaccine was announced, we're like, all right, we had a lot of really great ideas for how Kings and Neptunes were going to come back. And then after the vaccine, the pandemic's over, right? And that didn't happen. It actually, 21 was so much harder than 2020.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
It was way harder.
And it just really, it took the wind out of our sails, and we just really started thinking, I think, like most of the world, what do we really want to do? What's going to make us happy? Where do we put our energies? Paul's parents were not doing well, and like, you just start thinking about life, and like, like everything could end, and we had really like come eye to eye with losing all of it. And when we were able to kind of claw our way out of it, we never really clawed all the way out of it. And it was like, where do we put our energy? And, we both realized that we didn't really want to keep doing a music venue. We definitely didn't want to have a bar that was open till 2 a.m. Yeah. And the Garland was just kind of set up for me to always be there. And, and for Paul to always be there. And that's not... it just came to a point where it's like, we can do Garland and run this building and do nothing else with our life, and that at the end of the lease term, that's it. Or we kind of like figure out how to get out of this and figure out our space in this food and beverage world, in the music world, and maybe other creative projects that we might want to do, but we just keep pushing them off, and time's just going by. And I thought about it we talked about it for a long time, and it was really hard to say those words out loud. But I think it's time for us to stop this and figure out what our options are. And in the meantime, we had been approached in 2020 by Jason and Nicole, who were running Aniset, and that building, there was an opportunity to buy it. And so we bought it together, and we started building this restaurant out. And, it was appealing because it was small, and it was, had to be contained. It had to be really focused. Garland's like food was Pan-Asian. So all, our pantry was crazy. Like we just how many oils we had to keep in stock, coconut, mustard, peanut, grapeseed, olive, like neutral, rice bran, sesame, like, now we have olive oil and sunflower oil. It's like, that's it. You know what I mean? That's a very exemplary reflection of being focused. And I like to learn, and I think I really enjoyed the diversity of cuisines that we did at Garland, but it was kind of like my own, I built this box that I had to just constantly monitor. And I don't know, there's a lot of reasons, but it was definitely scary, and I still don't know if I'll know if it was the right decision for probably another few years, but it just kind of felt like it had to happen.
Well, it's the right decision because you did it and it's yours, and
that's right.
And whatever, and far be it for me to say it, but Garland was cheaty as fuck. Right?
Yeah.
It was pretty freaking cheaty.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like it was a very, very, in my opinion, having known you, and it's not like we're BFFs or whatever, but I know of you and I know your style and all. Garland was a great representation of you and the food that you produce, and it was so close to your heart and soul that it might be kind of hard to like not always be there, right? And is that part of like the part you felt compelled, like I have to be here for this to work the way it needs to, the way that you would be satisfied with it working?
Yes, and I also realized that I'd built the whole thing into that because I didn't know how to do anything else, and sometimes I've really felt like I was killing a part of me or killing a child in a way. But it was also like, if I'm ever going to have a team, people need to have ownership of what they're doing. And I don't know, it was just too personal, I think. And I didn't really want that to be the only creative output I had, but there was no room for anything else in my life.
Was there a lease that ended, or did you guys have to make the decision to get out of it?
We actually extended our lease in 2020 when we had all these great ideas, and then but we're working it out. We're going to have other folks, Martin and Aaron Wheeler are running Neptunes, and they're taking it over, and we've got some other folks taking over Kings, I think, soon.
Oh, cool.
And we have some other really interesting ideas for the Garland space. And that's another part of like what, we wanted to do with the next few years, even at Ajja and the space on Bickett, is like, let other people, like I want to foster an environment where Raleigh's able to still have people who have creative ideas, have talent, maybe don't want to commit to like a 10-year lease or don't have the money to do an upfit. Everything, real estate's growing and food and beverage is getting harder. So I think it's really time to like think of, different ways to have access and allow people the opportunity to explore an idea. And maybe they don't want to do it forever. I mean, that's before Garland opened, I just wanted to have like a stationary food truck with 5 items on the menu. And that's not what happened. That's not what life brought me. But, man, my life would have been maybe a little bit more fun, in that decade that I was running that restaurant.
But it's always hard to limit yourself, right? Like, especially when you're in that discovery phase and you want to learn everything and but I don't want to just cook with coconut oil. I want to use sesame oil. And I want to use this. And then it's like, oh, now I locked myself into this because I created these recipes.
Yeah. And like, this is a relatively small city and the culinary talent here is not vast, and it's hard to find people who not only understand the seasons and know the growers, but like are familiar with all the different techniques of South Asia, West Asia, Southeast Asia. Like, come on, I'm just setting people up for failure here.
Well, let's talk about your business or your team, because like even looking on your website at Ajja, you're not just saying it, you are kind of pushing forward and saying like meet the team. You've got a picture with both you and Paul, of course, but then you have your general manager and your bar manager and your chef all there, and there's like an introduction to like let everyone know who is on this team, which is pretty cool. So maybe speak about like how did you pull together your team and who is your team and how does it exist or what exists?
So Gail LaForest applied as the front of house manager in February of 2022 of Garland. And she is a really interesting person. She grew up in France, moved to London to go to college, and then lived in New Zealand, met a man who is from Kansas, but he came to a wedding in Raleigh in March of 2020. And, New Zealand was the first one that was like, nope, nobody's getting in, nobody's getting out.
I didn't even know if we were going to get into the story, but we're talking about Cray.
Yeah, that's right.
Cray worked with me at Y Hill.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Cray is a phenomenal bartender.
Yes.
And like is super creative and like he has a great mind. And I love the guy to death. And he came in to apply and told me this crazy story, how he just kind of got stuck in Raleigh because he was going to a friend's wedding. And he's like, yeah, and the woman I love is essentially stuck in New Zealand.
Yep.
And I have no way of like connecting with her. So like he lived on a couch for a while, and luckily we were able to, like, Y Hill ended up getting really busy and he did quite well. And then I was like, do you want to do a supplemental menu? Like I was the like tyrant and I needed to do it all myself, but I recognized that Cray was really good. I said, will you make a supplemental menu for when we had Jake Wood would pop up with Lawrence Barbecue there?
Yeah.
I said, you do the menu just for Jake's nights. And he like kicked my
Crushed
ass.
it, yeah.
Like his menu, we ended up just saying, maybe we should move some of these cocktails to the regular menu. And but he was always telling me about Gail and how he was trying to get her out here. And then of course, then eventually she was able to come out here. And I didn't even know that I haven't met Gail. I don't know her. Maybe I said hi to her one time, but I didn't know she was in the industry.
Yeah.
And then I saw on your website that she's your general manager. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, I guess that
she
makes
just
sense.
like she and I think have a real good vibe. We think alike. We, kind of exacting in the same way, and she's just of the industry too. And it's like, I've never really worked with somebody like that before, and really grateful for her. And Lindsay joined our team at Garland as a bartender, like at the end of 21, and I don't know them two together, the three of us, the four of us with Paul, like we've been talking about this restaurant. We kind of conceived it, a lot of the details about it together. I had sort of a general idea of what the food concept was going to be, what the equipment that it was going to be based on this grill. But it's been really incredible to work with them, and a different experience than we've ever had, and thrilling. Like, when you meet somebody who's ideally, you want to surround yourself with people who are better at things than you. And I mean, that's really what, growth and leadership is about. Like being the dumbest person in the room. That's my goal, and I'm not saying that I'm not. I think I already am, which is great. Yeah. Please be better. I mean, the ideas that come up and are leanings towards the ethos of what we want to do are very much aligned, and that I think is super important. And it really formed a good kernel for this business. And we're only 7 weeks into the actual operation of the restaurant, and I keep thinking, when's the shoe gonna drop? Like, but it just feels really good. And Chris, who's in the picture, was actually he joined as a line cook. Towards I think he only worked at Garland for 2 months, but he was previously a sous chef at Poolside Pies, and he's a sous chef, but he's the bread man. I mean, he and I worked together in that between the closure September and March. I was really busy with events, and he kind of helped me the whole time. And we just developed this really good working relationship together. And Paul and I went to Morocco for 3 days in December. And, I'm gluten-free, but bread is such a central part of our menu. And we really worked together on conceptualizing a bread that was in that tradition, but it wasn't pita. And, there's Tunisian breads that are basically fluffy flatbreads, I guess. So it's kind of a cross between a roll and a flatbread. So he really took that on, and I really love the way he thinks about the kitchen. We did hire Scott McKinney as a CDC at the end of May after the photo shoot. And so he's got a really rich resume from a lot of places in Durham that I'm sure everybody's familiar with. Everything from M Sushi to St. James, and he's been awesome. And Sarah Kenny, Sarah Kenny was a line cook at Garland and moved to California in 2018 and moved back and worked at Koan, and she ended up being the exec right before she left, before they closed, and reunited.
Cool.
Yeah. So now we have a really solid team.
Crew, yeah. And that bread, especially the gluten-free aspect to it. So Anson Mills produces a gluten-free flour.
That's right.
And they created this before, or did you work with them to create this?
No, this was a product that I used on the Garland dessert menu. I had being gluten-free, it was and I just think it's so ubiquitous now. I think maybe 30% of the population has, or it feels like it anyway, has some sort of intolerance. So we always had their gluten-free flour. And anytime that, there's smart ways to do it. You can't, it's really hard to make a biscuit for like a Southern biscuit for production, you know, okay, the flour is an important component of biscuit. But anyway, yeah, this flour was something I was familiar with. And
is it a conglomeration of a lot of different types of flour?
Yeah, that particular blend is brown. Their rice, their Carolina Gold rice, oat, bene seed, and I'm forgetting one thing.
Almond, maybe?
No, it's a nut-free blend. I'll tell you in a minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway, and then we add tapioca starch. I based our recipe on, imagine that is a gluten-free bread from Durham. And if you're gluten-free and you're listening, go to Weaver Street and get yourself their gluten-free bread. Imagine that. It is
Pro tip.
Yeah, just phenomenal. So I just looked
made
at
my wife happy too, because I'll pick some of that up for her.
That it's a toasting bread. It's crispy. It's great. Like tomato sandwiches. It doesn't fall apart. It's really really great.
Yeah, because Matt, you probably were getting to this point as well, but we had JP of JP's Pastry on,
Yeah.
who makes phenomenal gluten-free products.
Absolutely.
And the funny part about it was like, we were like, so how do you make it gluten-free? And he's like, the trick is it's actually you use more grain, not less. It's the blending that actually helps it become easier for your body to break down the gluten, as opposed to like just using singular enriched white flour or so. Like he's like, what we do is we mix all the different grains together, and that actually is what is more conducive to your body being able to digest it. And
but also better for just straight on baking, like makes the product the texture you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things you just can't do without gluten. I mean, gluten is magical. I think, I really miss it. But that's a whole nother conversation about why wheat here. Like when we went to Morocco, I could eat all the wheat products, and I had no reactivity whatsoever.
Yeah. It's because it wasn't filled with a bunch of GMOs and nonsense.
I mean, our soil is just fucked. Pardon. You're going to sample that now.
Totally. Mark that down.
But the Roundup, whatever, and also the variety that grows in America it's a harder wheat, and we enhance it with more gluten just to make it easier to work with. It's industrialization has a lot to do with everything. And even if, I'll try organic einkorn, I still have reactivity. But there I can just eat couscous and I eat, all the masemin, and everything is great. But anyway, I read the ingredients on the Imagine That bread, and I was like, well, egg white, vinegar. And we just concocted something that, works out really well.
And beyond the bread, this Ajja is a...
Ajja.
Am I saying Ajja?
Ajja.
There it is.
I'm saying it right.
There it is, folks.
It's different. It's a decidedly move away from Garland, not only in menu, but also in place. You move from like in the center of downtown Raleigh to the 5 Points neighborhood. So talk about those two things as like assuming they were intentional.
Yeah, I mean, again, the whole location was based on an opportunity, but I was really thrilled at the prospect of being in a neighborhood, being sort of downtown is important. It's so important. And we put like 13 years of really hard work into having downtown businesses. But there's a certain amount of like freedom that I feel in that space. There's like windows in the kitchen. There's natural light. There's a little bit of parking around, and I like the idea of us just having this intentional kind of restaurant in a neighborhood. I mean, it's just kind of the way real places are, you know? It doesn't have to be this central thing. I think it's really important that downtown has those kind of restaurants. And I think, and I'm really proud to be, have been in this community of chef-driven places that are, owned by individuals and people of the community and not chains. And I think that really informs the way Raleigh will be growing and has grown. But,
I want to get into that for a second, but before, I just want to hear a little bit about. So you went to Marrakesh.
No, we went to Fez.
Oh, you went to Fez. Okay. And the menu here, I think maybe a lot of, and you talked about it a little bit, and like it just got to too many things to manage. Just a very like tangible thing. But you're doing more of a Middle Eastern spin.
Yeah.
Menu. And I think probably people would have expected from you, it's going to be based on Indian food or Indian flavors.
Well, can anybody really tell me the difference? And I'm not being flippant here. So first of all, the space, because it's so much outdoor space, it's kind of conducive to an alfresco kind of concept.
Yeah.
And I wanted to keep the menu really light and bright and fresh and vegetable focused. The kitchen is tiny. Most of the animal protein comes off this sort of yakitori style grill. So skewers, I was like, how can I make, we have like 11 feet of a hotline, and that's what we got. So that was to me the most sort of vibrant way to express that space and the most compatible thing. I didn't want to do, and also, my mom's family is from, what is now Pakistan. It's August 15th today when we're recording this, and it's, it's India's Independence Day, but it's also the day of the partition. Not to get too heavy, but like that northwestern region, my grandparents were killed in that partition in front of my mom when she was a little kid, and 2 million people were slaughtered in that transition. Thank you, the British. This was the price that we had to pay to have our country back. But they created Pakistan. And so my maternal side of the family, like I'll never have access to that food tradition. My mom is now gone too.
How long ago was this? Like
1947.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the 40s were really...
British were fucking everything up.
Yeah. They really, they did a number on the planet. But... I don't know. I keep thinking about, and this is the through line between Ajja and Garland, like the migration of spices, the migration of food traditions, the migration of people, and how we bring our history and our culture with us no matter what. And whether it is a forced migration or a voluntary migration, my family's kind of been through both. And I just thought, I don't know, it was an abstraction in a way, but like, let's explore these flavors. Let's imagine that, maybe somewhere down my maternal lineage, somebody is from Persia or somebody's from Afghanistan. I don't know. I'll never know. So I don't know, not to get too heavy into it, but the space kind of wanted that, and I really love the idea of quick cooking on skewers. I wanted to be able to service, in the nice weather when there was a lot of people outside. Didn't want to do a lot of slow pan pickups. I wanted to do quick food that was still thoughtful and still kind of chefy.
Yeah.
Well, that type of food is like, isn't it also considered like the most healthiest?
That's right.
Mediterranean diet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could eat that every day and be great.
And that's what I wanted. We're in a neighborhood. I wanted to like make it accessible and like not feel heavy after eating it. And it just gave me the most freedom to explore. If there's another pandemic, we have outdoor seating, and this could be good takeout food. I hope we never have to explore that too heavily, but if we do, we're ready.
Yeah.
Well, and your neighborhood is starting to pop as well. I mean, it was just recently announced that Trophy is taking over the space just
right next door.
Which used to be, what is it? It's like
electrical supply.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, but it's like a massive, like barn, if you will. Like it's a big
old warehouse. Yeah.
Right. And so they're going to open up. It'll be like a tap room, right? Or a what do they call it? A brew.
It'll be their main brewery and a tap room and a restaurant, but they're going to do it in phases.
Yeah.
So they're, their main operation, but I don't know if it's big enough to do all of their stuff. So
right. I thought it was just going to be like a beer house, like what is it? Like the Hofbrauhaus. What am I trying to say? Not a tap room, but a
beer garden.
Like a beer garden or so. But
it's big. It's real big.
They've got some space there. So, and it's cool. I mean, that little area, it's tucked in into like just not outside of a neighborhood, but it does, like I was saying, it overlooks the downtown skyline.
It's by the railroad tracks, I feel
Yeah.
comfortable there.
right next to, we keep mentioning Steve Mangano's skate park, but or it's not his skate park, but he had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Was
It is his skate
behind
park,
it,
right?
yeah, creating it.
I want to see Steve Mangano do a McTwist. That's what Steve, you're being tasked. I know you
He's
listen.
got some bad knees, so don't put him up to that challenge.
I'm going to his little pop up. He's got a little pop up coming up. He's doing.
I didn't know this.
He's only the cool kids were invited.
Yeah.
But he's doing like an aperitivo pop up near the pool, which is kind of fun. It's like it's going to be, I forget what he calls it. It's like two stunades by the pool or something. I don't know. But
What's the pool?
there's a pool down the street from here. The Artisan, what's it called? It's
Oh, a hotel?
I don't even know what it is now. This is the worst plug ever, Steve. Sorry.
We will clean this up.
It's on a
in
need
post
to know
next.
basis.
Yeah. It might have already happened by the time this episode comes out, so don't worry about it.
But this gets along into something that you touched on, and I want to chat about it. And I don't want to end this on a downer, but I'll say like those areas, I think, outside the outskirts of what was previously downtown Raleigh are growing and advancing at a much, in my opinion, greater rate and way than what we think of as the heart of downtown Raleigh, where Garland was and this building still is. And I know that you still have business interests here, so you might not, maybe you feel a different way, more optimistic. And people who know me, I typically look through things as a glass half full type of guy, but I was just thinking about this morning in context of this episode and thinking about your restaurant and moving businesses over to 5 Points and just in general. And Max and I have this conversation, but like the vibrancy in downtown Raleigh in the Fayetteville immediate is really lacking.
I don't think people really understand the amount of sort of how hard 2020 was downtown. Like, it really took a lot out. And I think most, cities don't have like a straight trajectory, right? There's always ups and downs. Downtown has always had, I feel like, a little struggle with like, people, like all of these events that got like transplanted in here. Mm-hmm. There's a certain amount of, I don't know. And there isn't like this support, I think, for local businesses that are downtown. People really hesitate to drive downtown and find parking. It's so hard. It's not that hard. There's so many parking decks. I feel like to some extent it's better, way better now. But like, when we opened Kings and Neptunes in 2010, like, putting the bike fest and like all of these things that make downtown closed up and installing a Ferris wheel in the center, it's like, it brings a lot of people downtown, but they don't really get to celebrate what actually is here the rest of the year. And since the pandemic, I don't know, I just feel like it's been wounded,
You would have thought like that whole revitalization of Moore Square, and either that's a through line like for families that love to come down there to go to Marbles or can eat at that cafe and just hang out, but it just hasn't. And I know obviously the pandemic has, but even before, was it really so great?
It wasn't just the pandemic. I mean, we had riots in the streets.
Right.
That,
I mean,
happened to happen
that was
during
2020
post George Floyd.
Yes.
And businesses
this
just didn't
building that
recover.
we're in was on fire. It's just that our fire suppression code or our fire suppression system actually worked and it put it out. But our building manager called 911 and said, "Hey, somebody threw a Molotov cocktail into CVS and it's on fire." They're like, we cannot dispatch the fire department in times of crisis because we don't have the manpower to like protect them.
Yeah.
And he's like, "So what are you telling me?" They're like, "We hope your fire suppression systems work because that's all we're going to be able to do." And it did. So, knock on wood.
Knock
everything
on
was
wood.
Fine. But this building was on fire. I don't think Garland didn't experience any real damage, right? Like,
Not. Paul and I stood outside after the night of the first protest.
Yeah.
We were there till like 1:30 in the morning with Sarah and Victor from Raleigh Denim, who stood guard with us. And after, around 1:00, I was like, I think this is why we have insurance, because it's starting to feel really unsafe. We literally stopped 3 different groups of people from throwing a scooter or the newspaper like vending thing through our windows. And literally 10 minutes after we left, somebody threw something through the window. I mean, we lost a window, it's not compared to what other people had suffered. But it was just like every time there was a protest, like there's a text thread of, restaurant owners around here. It's just like, man, it's traumatizing, and the news really loves that story about how unsafe downtown is. And I don't think that's really helping, No. I think it's really unfair to the people that have really busted their asses for the last, before the pandemic and then through the pandemic, and have survived and really like brought their businesses back, to just keep harping on the negative parts. And it's a challenge. It is 100% a challenge. But I think, if people want to have a vibrant downtown, you have to support it. You have to make those decisions. And,
I feel bad for like Sonny Gerhardt is like the guy.
Well, Sonny is a success story for downtown. Like
he's like the one of the few champions.
Like
I mean, he's doing better than he was before.
Yeah. But that also has to do with personal growth on his end.
100%.
Yeah.
And, but that's like a personal story. This is a person who took a business in downtown on like a main street in the heart of the city and like, nurtured it into something that it wasn't even before. Yeah. I mean, that's a business that you should support and go to.
And his food is delicious.
It's delicious. It's
a
great
think
restaurant.
That I don't know, maybe through like, I mean, we've had him on the show and I'm not speaking out of turn. Like he's sober now, and he's like, maybe through like the clarity that he's got with his vision, like even his food is better. Like, I mean, his food was always great, but I feel like he just shot to a new level. You know?
You can feel the connection.
It's awesome. So if you haven't been to St. Roch, go to St. Roch.
But along that line, like, and maybe this is probably, especially in this room, going to be a really unpopular thought, but would we be better off then? Because you said independent owners, but if and the Raleigh area is always been very non-attractive to chain restaurants because we're a government-run state for liquor. So that the big businesses and the big chains don't have enough support, so they don't want to come here.
Yeah,
and a couple of other things, but like it makes me think like, are we just better off if like a couple of mellow mushrooms were around the corner and
Garland turns into a PF Chang's?
Yeah, I mean, there's no soul.
Just to reverse the vibrancy, and then you could still potentially have the independence.
I just don't think that it would. Those places wouldn't survive either. They'd do worse than St. Roch. It's like, why would you come downtown to go to a mellow mushroom? At least like these places have a perspective. They're telling a story. People have fans. They represent something to the community. If all of those places were, replaced by PF Chang or, I mean, like just look at Whataburger. We had a Whataburger for like 4 minutes, right? That didn't make it. That's not the answer. I think
we had Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And it went down. Do you not remember? We had Chick-fil-A.
It was like on a weird location.
It was a weird spot, but it was next to the post office. It was really close to Garland. Like it was maybe a block away. But it also was, I talked to the guy ad nauseum about it one time because it was so weird. The whole setup was different than a normal Chick-fil-A, but he had revealed that it was a tester Chick-fil-A. It's where they tested different service ideas and recipe ideas. So they just did all this weird stuff at this particular Chick-fil-A.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. Who knows if that was also just maybe a temporary lease for them just to like work out the bugs or so. But if Chick-fil-A can't make it, who can make it?
Well,
true thing,
St. Roch and Beasley's and Pools and
that's true.
Foundation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's easy to talk about because you can see and you can feel how it feels out there, but people are still, Bittersweet still got a line, Centro's here after 15 years. I mean, it's
Whiskey
not
Kitchen still running.
That's
hard.
right. Yeah. It's not easy. I think it could be easier, but I think people just need to kind of focus on the pot. I'm not an optimistic person. Anybody who knows me would say, "Why are you? How did that come out of your mouth?" But really, like, there's a lot of successes to really celebrate, and I hope people continue to celebrate them.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. I do want more for Fayetteville. We talked about that with Jason Queen and all, and he's a property owner and all in this area. And I think I think we just have to be patient, but I think things are coming.
Well, I think, this country needs more social services. Like there's people that like need mental health help that are just living on the street, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, no one's minding the farm. I mean, we don't want what we had in the 30s and 40s. I mean, we have an old picture here in the kitchen of Raleigh, dated back to I think 1920. This building itself was built in 1913, right? So, but there's a picture, and it shows a huge mental health hospital, a loony bin, as they would call it back then, right? Which I'm not trying to be. That's what they called it. You know what I mean? And it was a horrible thing. They just rounded up anyone that wasn't normal, quote unquote normal, and put them in a loony bin. That wasn't the great solution. But there's no solution now. Now it's anyone with mental health issues that can't afford hospital care or any type of medical
or housing.
We're just going to let you live on the street and just do whatever the hell you want. We turned into a nice political change here, but
it's okay.
But
there's a lot of deep issues here.
Yeah. So it's
and then it goes to allow you like, oh well, you can just have your own gun and police yourself.
But I mean, I guess what we're saying is like, in densely populated areas such as the downtown area of Raleigh.
Well, I beg to differ. I think the problem is that not enough people live downtown. And, if we had really a vibrant residential community, then there would be more pedestrian traffic. People would be walking around. This would be their neighborhood. And downtown right now isn't a neighborhood. It doesn't feel like a neighborhood. Even the people that live here get in their car and go somewhere else to go out to eat,
Yeah. That's the mentality of Los Angeles, is that no one's from Los Angeles. So then when you go there, you don't really treat it like you care, because you also might only live there for a temporary amount of time. So like people are littering on the street or just defacing property, not caring because it's not yours. But yeah, if you lived in this building, you might sweep up a little bit, or
I mean,
things.
if there were like 10,000 people more, like 10,000 more people living in these 4 blocks, imagine how different it would feel.
That was the we had the mayoral candidate Terrence Ruth, and that was his like main and hard very strong standpoint about housing, and affordable housing, and I mean, valid point, very valid.
I think this is not just a Raleigh issue; it's a national, maybe international issue. Like downtowns were kind of killed for suburbs, and now there's been, for the last 20 years or so, people are trying to like reinvest in downtown and bring them back, but it's always developers first. But really, a good community is created by creative people and people who are taking a chance and opening a little bakery in a corner, and like all of a sudden things grow around restaurants, retail happens, people start living there. But I just think like we're in this awkward phase where a lot of development has happened. The housing that's available is for people who are rich and they're not there because they have to be there. We need the people that really have to be here to like support.
Well, we were trained to just shop from home, and like people don't need to go out anymore.
Yeah.
And so
that's the other thing is the independent restaurateur or boutique shop owner is not going to go to a place if there's nobody living there, and there's going to be a good amount of foot traffic with income available to buy their products.
Sure, but sometimes, that's the only place you can afford, and you take a chance. I mean, there's just
Build
the entrepreneur. Yeah, that's right. The entrepreneur is like unstoppable. And it's just like, I got this idea, I got this lease, I got this space. Maybe if I just, do this well enough and work hard enough, people will be drawn to it. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that like an independent restaurant or independent food and beverage business is a canary in the coal mine, and it goes down first and then things grow around it. I think that happens a lot. We're just in an awkward middle phase, I think.
Yeah. I'm a pessimist as well, typically. But I will say in the most positive way I can think is things have looked up recently in this food and beverage area, in this specific area. Like I do see a couple of restaurants opening, and I see a couple of things like just ticking towards positivity. And I think it's just, we wanted it to happen quicker than it did, and it hasn't. But I think we will see some more development.
I think so
happening
too.
In a good way.
We're like a decade in, so it's a shift.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a transition.
I think, I guess maybe in this positive sense, I think we've already hit rock bottom and we're actually going up.
I agree.
Yeah, is that okay? Look at these two pessimists.
Yeah.
All right,
Nice.
we're looking up.
On that note,
Great way to finish the show.
it is a great way to finish the show. The evolution of Raleigh.
We've hit rock
We've hit
bottom.
rock bottom.
We can't go down anymore.
Only
Can't get worse.
Well, thank you, Cheetie, for coming in and
Thanks for having
sharing
me.
everything, sharing your insights in the history. And I will say, if I could say this right for once, go to Ajja and you will eat and drink extremely merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NC podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.